I've had the phrase relationship industrial complex on my mind for a few days, so I thought I would express some thoughts related to this. It comes from the term military industrial complex, but as it relates to love. The military industrial complex basically plays upon fear that we will be, I guess, attacked by Iran or North Korea or whatever. So therefore we have to have a military budget that's larger than the next 10 countries combined, etc., and so forth. Whereas the relationship industrial complex, which is much more integrated into our everyday lives, that plays upon fear as well, but a different kind of fear. The fear of being alone. Now, if you're on a path of personal and spiritual growth, you are going to find at some point you need to get comfortable within your own skin. A lot of people never do that. They go through their entire existence never really feeling comfortable with their just their own company. And so businesses, corporations, so forth, they prey upon that inner sense of lack that many people have by making purchases of various sorts the answer to your wholeness. So if you want to step outside of this whole game, then you have to work on getting comfortable with yourself, doing some healing work, practicing being alone, and step outside of this kind of major brainwashing campaign that reinforces the idea that being in a relationship is always better than being alone. Because in reality, if you don't feel comfortable being alone, then your relationship is really it's a form of addiction. And so you're always going to be afraid that it will fall apart, and therefore you're always going to be compromising your integrity on some level in order to feel safe and comfortable, because heaven forbid you be alone and then have to, get comfortable with yourself. That is so far outside of mainstream values. But I do believe a greater number of people are starting to recognize the addictive and materialistic components of love and brainwashing, and starting to, think for themselves and say, why can't I just sit here in this chair and love myself and feel good? Where did that come from? What happened in my past that led me to that point? And boy, I would like to really be comfortable with myself, because then my relationships would be an enhancement to my life and not simply the treat them like a vital organ that I need in order to be complete. So I want to take you through 4 stages of how media representation through advertising will portray your connection to need and love. So the first stage is, if you're single, certain products will make you more attractive. If you see ads for any kind of hard liquor, there used to be an era that kind of like, you don't see cigarette ads on TV. There was an era when you didn't see hard liquor on TV because there was enough evidence to show the correlation between, self-destructive alcoholic behaviors and purchase of these items. But, of course, you're not going to see an ad for vodka in which somebody is sitting at home depressed or anxious and self-medicating their loneliness with alcohol. You're going to see people at gatherings where everyone's happy and dancing and sexy, and there is an implicit message that alcohol, it's not something that you just use for self-medication. It's something that you use to attract sexy people into your life, which is absurd, but people buy into it because when they're in an altered state, they can believe that they are more appealing, instead of doing the core work on why are they depressed, why are they anxious, why are they having issues that prevent them from having fulfilling relationships. So that's the first stage when you're single. The next stage is the marriage stage, in which you are expected to spend a lot of money. There's an entire industry based upon weddings that expects you to reflect the importance of this event with the external kind of image that you are projecting outward through the setting and the dress and the rings and all of the various components of this bond. And I find, weddings are so full of groupthink, and I get personally kind of creeped out by any kind of groupthink where people kind of act a certain way in groups. I just kind of avoid those kinds of celebrations. There can be cool ones, I'm sure, but for the most part, I'm not into it. And I don't believe in monogamy either, but that's a whole other story that I've explored in other videos on this channel in my polyamory section on my homepage. So the next stage is after the new relationship energy fades. This could also be called post-honeymoon. And at that point, your focus is supposed to shift towards a nicer car and vacations and furniture, and it's all about impressing people when they come over to your house. And what happens, I believe, is that when people, let's say, are a year or 2 years or 3 years into a relationship, and they start to realize that they are no longer, due to monogamy, able to be sexual with any other person for the rest of their entire life, decades to come, then it's normal for there to be a shift towards purchasing to temporarily give you distractions in life. And I think that as more and more people awaken, they realize the high that comes from these kinds of acquisitions is getting shorter and shorter. That perhaps 2 generations ago, a really nice kitchen appliance or a really nice couch could make you feel proud and good about yourself for a long time, many months perhaps, even years. But now, the sparkle kind of fades pretty quickly. Maybe within a few days or a week, you're like, okay, what next? And so a lot of advertising you'll see is designed to say, hey, you might be in somewhat of a stagnant phase of your existence. You might not be able to find fulfillment through what you're doing for your work or discovering your underlying life purpose and how to find deeper peace and inner fulfillment. But here's a lot of stuff you can buy. The next stage is if the relationship ends, how can you compensate? This isn't exploited as much in advertising, but it's still there. One of the most gross examples that I saw of this recently was a credit card company showing a guy who was talking about how someone broke up with him because he was boring. And so what is the solution to being boring? Using his credit card to purchase things that makes him more interesting, and wow, look at him now. And this is largely fed by the whole concept that what makes you interesting is superficial pursuits and acquisitions. So if you do something, if you go to another place that is considered more interesting, exotic, then you are more interesting and exotic. Now, in my experience, people that talk about what they do, like various places they go, or whether it's on vacation or different cool places in their more immediate environment or whatever, they're some of the most uninteresting people in the world to me because there's no depth to that. Anybody that has mobility can go to another place, but this is part of how people try to become interesting so they can go back to stage 1, be single, attract somebody, try to find completeness, and so forth. And it's just kind of sad, because when you're constantly exposed to these concepts, not only through advertising, but through mainstream media, a lot of TV shows and films and so forth, and books, that reinforce this concept of incompleteness, then it's hard to break out of it when you don't know it's a problem. Like when you are in the thick of the game and you're basically sleepwalking because you've been handed these rules about what life should look like and how to navigate your way through it, you don't know that there's a problem. You don't question the game, you just figure out how to play it more effectively, how to get more power, more wealth, and more become more attractive to others. And there's only one way, really, to step out of this cycle of materialism and superficiality. You have to go within and find out what is blocking you from feeling good in your body. Tune in to how you feel. Ask yourself, if you don't feel good right now, why is that? And deconstruct your life. Question the different rules that you've been given, and turn to a more reflective way of living, because then you're still going to buy stuff, but it's not going to come from a place of incompleteness or compensation. It's liberating, and you might have leftover money to do things that feel more deeply satiating, like donate to causes that you believe in and so forth. Thanks for listening, and take care.